It's November 15, 2024. It is the day that Germany's highest rated player, Vincent Keymer, 2733, is turning 20 years old. Congratulations. I hope you have a nice day. But what are chess players doing actually on their birthday? Well, usually they're just playing chess and preferably far away from home. Vincent Keymer is playing right now at the Tata Steel Chess India Rapid event and playing very exciting games. And well, what do chess players request as a birthday present? Normally just a victory, but if you're lucky, you can win in style. And then you get to see the following game, people. This is absolutely insane. It's a really, really enjoyable game, something you don't often get to see at the highest level. But I'm pretty sure Vincent did enjoy his birthday with the following game. I'm going to show you what happened. He's playing with the white pieces against Vidit. Very strong player, of course, as well. Member of the Olympiad golden medal team. It's actually a very short game, but very exciting as well. I'll take you through the ins and outs. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, make sure to do that so that you are not missing anything from the latest top tournament. So here we go. Keymer opens the game with 1 c4. Knight f6, knight f3, e6. And here he goes for the move b3. This was considered to be just a random way of developing. His idea is to place the queen's bishop on the long diagonal. And after bishop d6, he goes g3. So he's basically doing the same with the other bishop as well. And for a long period of time, such openings were not considered to be very dangerous. I mean, a lot of people even didn't take it seriously. Nowadays, it is a very serious line. I mean, in a lot of openings, it's simply impossible to get an advantage, but you are just aiming for a position where you can get a game. Now, Vincent Keymer is an absolute expert on this system, and basically because of his efforts, this line has become very popular again, and Vincent has tremendous results with it. Now, this game can be added to the collection as well. Let's see what happens after b6. Black is trying to develop his bishop as well. Pawn takes d5. E takes d5. So we do have an asymmetrical pawn structure. Castling kingside, bishop b7, knight c3. With his bishop on d6, which does look pretty active, you always got to reckon with knight b5 ideas. And in general, if white can get the pair of bishops, that maybe just be worth something to play for. So therefore the move a6, white plays the move e3. Now, it's quite interesting that for some time, white consciously has decided here to keep this long diagonal open for this bishop on b2 and doesn't play the move d4 here yet. Black played knight bd7 and now the move rook c1. And still, there are a number of games. If you look in the database, you see a lot of games of Vincent Keymer here. Knight c5 is, in my opinion, a little bit a strange move. I would prefer to go for something like rook e8. And at some point probably play something like c5. But what is happening here is actually that white is waiting for black to play this move c5. And only then he wants to play d4. So that at some point there is some tension, the pawns can be exchanged and the position will be opened. Now, after knight c5, white doesn't play the move d4. Then in that case you jump in with a knight to e4 and black is not going to play c5. Because here with the pawn on d4, this bishop on b2 just remains out of play. So instead of playing d4, white played very nice move d3. Very subtle pawn play in the center. These pawns are taking away a lot of squares on the fourth rank. So the knight on c5 is not really going anywhere. Vidit played knight e6. Just looks like a small improvement. The knight is not doing badly here at all. In certain cases, maybe the move d5, d4 can be considered with the aim of challenging the pawn on d4, on e3, ruining the pawn structure. But therefore, the move knight e2 is played. And frankly speaking, I think Vincent was still pretty much in book, as he had this exact position 2 years ago against Jan Nepomniachtchi. And in that game, there followed rook e8, and Vincent developed his knight to d4. And after the exchange of knights, he jumped in with a knight to f5. I would say this is slightly better for white. Maybe black is still okay here, but I feel that white's bishops are looking quite nice. The knight on f5 looks great as well. But anyway, this was not played in the current game. Instead of rook e8, Fidit played here to move c5. So he's also grabbing space in the center, but now white does play here to move d4. And that's exactly what I've been talking about. Now you can see that at some point, either black or white, one of them is going to take on c5, after which this bishop will be a great piece again. Rook c8 played, and white is not in a rush. Everything is under control. D4 square is well covered by the knights and the bishop. Knight h4 was played. Very nice move, as the knight is on its way to f5 to tickle this bishop on d6. Rook e8 played. And now, pawn takes c5. This is the moment where white decides to release the tension. Now, very important moment. How is black going to recapture? Well, very often you would like here to take back with your b pawn, so that you have two fantastic pawns in the center, but these pawns can become vulnerable as well. And concretely here, it simply doesn't work for black. White can trade off that wonderful bishop for the knight on f6, so that after taking back with the queen, there's bishop takes d5, bishop takes, queen takes d5, white is up, a very big pawn. It's a tremendous success for white. So that means that here, at this point, the b pawn is not really able to recapture. Black decided to take with the bishop, so black accepts here the position, playing with an isolated queen's pawn. And well, it might still be playable, but I believe this is always some sort of a weakness, and white's pieces will look for opportunities to target the pawn. Well, first the knight from h4 goes to f5. This is a beautiful move. It's pretty active, cannot easily be challenged. Together with the bishop, this knight is exerting quite a bit of pressure against black's king. But usually when playing with this IQP, black is playing it pretty aggressively. Knight e4 was played here, so that if white's ever going to take, you take back with the pawn, and that would be an improvement for black's pawn structure. But white continues here with knight f4. I think this is a pretty good move, as it does exert pressure against d5, but also against the knight on e6. Anyway, black decides here to take on f4, and white recaptures with the g pawn. Now, interestingly, this white king may look a bit more vulnerable, but also the pawn on g7 is now under attack, as it's no longer defended by the knight on e6. That knight is gone. How to play here as black? Well, if you play something like f6 to close the diagonal for white's bishop, the queen will come into g4, threatening checkmate. Things are starting to look pretty unpleasant here, to be honest. The alternative is to go g6, which feels absolutely wrong. I mean, if the rook would still have been on f8, then knight h6 would actually have been checkmate. Now the king can still go to f8, but after knight g4, still the position does look quite bad for black. There are even ideas to give up the bishop for the knight, so that the knight from g4 can go to f6 to hit the rook on e8 or on e4, the pawn on h7. White's prospects are looking quite good here. But I think that Fidit really wanted to play aggressively here. That's why he went for this setup. He went here for rook e6. But what is going on here? Because the pawn on g7 can just be taken, which is what happened. Bishop takes g7 was played, and it's a pawn. And well, black is probably looking for tactical opportunities. If you can deflect the knight, and the bishop could be hanging. So you have to be a little bit careful. If you do play rook to g6, setting up threats against the bishop on g2, then the bishop just returns to d4, the knight will return to g3, and white will definitely enjoy the extra pawn. So before playing rook g6, Fidit sacrifices a second pawn with the move d4. And now things are getting totally out of hand. I mean, it's clear that either white is going to win or black has some amazing tactics. Well, black has to deal with the move bishop takes d4. Black is losing this second pawn, but continues here with rook to g6. You can see that now the diagonal for this bishop has been opened. Black is looking for tactical opportunities, but Keymer has calculated pretty well. Played here this move, bishop takes c5. And now we have interesting position where white has to calculate quite deep. What is going on? If you just take back, your queen takes d8, rook takes d8, knight e7. With a knight fork, you're eliminating the rook on g6. So that's not an option. But rather than taking back on c5, White should have seen this move, rook takes g2. It was not played in the game, but let's analyze the consequences of this move. After king takes g2, there is knight c3 with a discovered check against the white king, and you're about to win the queen. But what's happening here? I'm pretty sure that Keymer had calculated this move, king h3. And if you do take the queen, it's rook g1 check. And the king cannot go to f8, has to go into the corner. There is rook from c1 capturing on d1. And with the rook and the knight, well, white is actually completely winning here. If you move the queen away, there is bishop d4 and the king is getting mated into the corner thanks to this rook on g1. If you put the queen on f6 to stop bishop d4 check, well, there is bishop d4 anyway, and the queen will be lost. So in all these lines, looks like white is winning. Relatively best here is to take with a pawn on c5. But after rook takes d8, rook takes back, white is up two very nice pawns and should not have any problems converting the extra material. So back to the game. After bishop takes c5, black tried here this move, knight to d2, closing the d-file and threatening to take with the rook on g2. So therefore the knight goes back to g3, blocking the g-file. And you're saying that, okay, you can take the rook on f1, was not played by Fidit, but after bishop takes b7, knight takes g3, queens can be exchanged, you take back on g3. It's a long forcing sequence with only captures, but such a position where white is having 3 pawns and the bishop for the rook, that's actually pretty easy technical win for white. So that is something Fidit didn't really fancy playing here with black. Instead of taking on f1, he took on g2. And still the position is really good for white. There are actually numerous ways of playing. You may just take back on g2 with the king. But look at the following move. It's absolutely amazing that you get a chance to play such a move in an over-the-board game against a super grandmaster. But it's even more pleasant when it's your 20th birthday. Bishop e7. What an amazing move to remove the bishop from that threat on c5. You're opening up the c-file, hitting the rook. If you take on e7, is rook takes c8 check, king g7. And now the simplest move is just queen takes d2. And, well, white will be up material after bishop takes f1. It's king takes f1. White is up a piece. That doesn't work. If you take on c1 first, well, then you can take the bishop on with the bishop, the queen on d8. Rook takes d1, rook takes d1, and both the knight and the bishop on g2. They are both hanging, so white is winning material here. Now the position is losing. I don't really have a good suggestion here for black, but Fidit played here this move, queen d5. Absolutely remarkable. I mean, he's protecting the bishop. Maybe he's hoping to get in knight f3. And if king has to take, there's maybe a discovered check with a knight. Maybe this works, but there's also a rook takes c8, check, grabbing a full rook. Black is forced to move the king. And now again, a lot of interesting moves. But can you spot the final blow in this position? It's white to move and win in style. Well, Vincent Keymer didn't have any problems spotting this idea. He would love to check the black king with his knight on f5, but the queen is guarding that square. Therefore, queen takes d2. Sacrificing the queen is a fantastic idea here. I mean, there's no time to take on f1 the rook. It's queen takes d5 and it will soon be made, completely game over. And if you do take with the queen on d2, and that's very kind of Fidit Wu, just capture the queen and allowing Vincent Keymer to give checkmate on his birthday. What an amazing mating pattern with knight, bishop and rook. Rook taking away the squares on the back rank, the bishop the f6 square, and the knight, of course, the h6 square, and it's giving check. So that's a very cute final position. I hope Vincent really enjoyed it as much as I did. I hope you enjoyed it as much as Vincent and me. And well, thanks for watching this video. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Get 7,000 subscribers before the end of this tournament. And Of course, it's not forbidden to give this video a like as well, share it among your friends, make a PayPal donation. I really need your support in the coming weeks, months, and years to follow. Thanks for that. See you soon again. Bye bye.